The following episode of the Maui Chamber of Commerce's Business Matters was originally broadcast on May 30th, 2023.
Aloha and welcome to Business Matters Radio Show, sponsored by Mokulele Airlines. I'm your host, Pamela Tumpot, president of the Maui Chamber of Commerce. We're now going to speak with Paul Brewbaker, the principal of TZ Economics, a Hawaii economics consultancy. His background in research on the Hawaii economy and financial risk analytics stems from a 25-year affiliation with Bank of Hawaii, where he concluded as its chief economist. He has lectured extensively on international monetary and financial economics. He has been on the Council on Revenues. He has a long history of addressing economics in Hawaii and abroad. Good morning, Paul, and welcome to the show. We're thrilled to have you on again.
Aloha, Pam. Thanks for inviting me back.
And you're on a retreat in Colorado, so thank you for making this time.
I'm heading out in the country,
during your retreat. We really appreciate you. You know, we have spent a lot of time for decades talking about economic diversification and the need for economic diversification, both at the county and state levels. And of course, COVID really heightened that discussion. And for Maui, one of the things, you know, every county is unique. And we, for example, only have one harbor. We don't have the same military presence that others do. And each county sort of has unique assets. So I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about what you sort of see as overall good opportunities for our state in economic diversification, and kind of specifically, given Maui's asset base, what you see as unique opportunities for Maui in economic diversification.
Yeah, well, to start off, I'm afraid I need to make a confession that I seem to be the one person in the state of Hawaii who does not think we need to diversify the economy.
Well, I'm thrilled. Let's hear about that.
You programmed the wrong guest this morning. No. Let's go back in history just a little bit to understand what I'm talking about, and then I can try to answer the question, the underlying question, which I think you're asking, which is what else can we do? And that's definitely a pertinent question. So, if I understand this, and I was in elementary school in the 1960s, but I remember in third grade, which would have been about 1963, I remember learning the word diversification from Mrs. Chun in my social studies class. And the reason I remember it is because we used to play hangman at recess, remember, where you...
Yes.
The spelling, yeah. Well, diversification was a good word for hangman. And... not as good as anti-disestablishmentarianism, but it was up there. And
what a great teacher you had.
Yeah, we had some good ones. Hey, look, the hummingbirds are just coming back.
Oh,
anyway, sorry.
That's okay. How awesome.
Life in Colorado, yeah. So it's been around for a while. It's been around in economic policy discussions in Hawaii since the late territorial, early statehood period, right? So now we're talking, 1950s and 1960s. And the reason it was around in terms of the political economy, the reason the issue has been around, is because at that time, outside the plantation, legacy, oligarchy, and the military on Oahu, which of course in the mid-20th century was of huge importance and a real determinant of world history. The legacy of the way Hawaii had organized its economy around plantation, sugarcane, sugar and molasses exports, and then later, mostly in the 20th century, canned pineapple exports, left in the post-war era an emerging political uprising, if you will, seeking change, seeking new avenues for economic potential. And in the administration of Jack Burns, governor of Hawaii in the mid-1960s, Hawaii embarked on a number of different trajectories, including ones that we have shut down in Hawaii. I mean, we've come full circle now, so we don't build telescopes in Hawaii today. We dismantle telescopes in Hawaii today. And we don't engage in transgenic modification in Hawaii. We banned it on Maui at one point. The courts threw out the ban, but I mean, by popular vote, transgenic modification was declared illegal in Maui County. So that's how we roll in Hawaii today, which is the exact opposite of what Governor Burns and the people building the first telescopes in the mid-1960s, starting what we call the seed industry, the corn seed industry, which is really about genetic modification.
Right. In
Molokai in 1967, right in Maui County, and down there around Kihei. And then in later versions of this evolution, the Maui Research Park down there, also in Kihei, and
where I worked for many years.
You know, all this stuff was going on when I was a kid, and diversification was the sort of mantra under which let's try something new. Was now, as I say, the Hawaii I live in now is throttling all of that stuff. It's throttling the existing STEM-based industries. You say you have one port. Why even have a port if we're not going to have a ferry? That's on a sensitive subject. But if you're only going to move goods around on the ocean surface and not passengers, then that's sort of limiting to opportunity. I've driven to Maui. I drove a car onto the ferry and drove it off on Maui and went to my mother and father-in-law's house for Christmas one year, but I can't do that now. So the diversification people talk about today, I don't think is the same thing, because ironically, the biggest thing into which the Burns administration diversified in the 1960s was tourism.
Right.
Tourism was the way we diversified the economy at the time of statehood. We built 80,000 lodging units. And now we crack down on undocumented vacation rentals seeking a pathway to citizenship, right? We call them illegal vacation rentals.
Right.
So we're doing the opposite in Hawaii today, under the same name. We claim to be diversifying the economy by throttling, right? We're not going to use smartphones and hosting apps and booking apps to build more houses, which can be used for short-term rental occupancy. We're just not going to do that. That's illegal in Hawaii. And the 20% of Hawaii's workforce that now works remotely, about 10 or 11, 12% who work from home full-time or work remotely full-time, and another 10, 11, 12%. That is as of April. I only have April 2023 data, but about a fifth to a quarter of the workforce in Hawaii works remotely now. And I'm working remotely in Hawaii in Colorado. So if we're not going to do that, if we're not going to keep up with the rest of the global economy, then I'm not even sure why we're having this discussion. I'll stop with that preamble, because we should be talking about other things that can happen in Hawaii and why it might be possible to revive the diversification mantra. But nowadays, the term in Hawaii politics and Hawaii political economy, the word diversification is just a word that people throw out there to validate everybody's expectation that should be the economic policy focus, right? You just say diversification, you use the adjective sustainable in front of everything, right? So we only do sustainable fill in the blank. We don't do fill in the blank. We do sustainable fill in the blank. Because sustainability, as Robert Solow, the guy who invented neoclassical economic growth theory, once said about it, sustainability, the less you know about it, the better it sounds. That's kind of where we're stuck in Hawaii. Nobody remembers why. I mean, dude, we did tourism to diversify the Hawaii
Yes.
economy. And now people are trying to suppress tourism,
Right.
the principal export, right? We want to do less tourism. So,
And where,
Anyway.
again, we after shutting, we lost so many engineers. We also talk a great deal about STEM. But where are those STEM jobs? And when HCNS closed down, we lost a lot of engineers. And I've been having some discussion lately with people who are trying to manufacture and do new things. And then, of course, we talk about tourism, and you have a lot of engineers, in maintaining hotels and large structures and buildings. But outside of now tourism, and we lost HCNS, where are those STEM jobs? And where are we seeing, we're training our students, but we're really training them to go off and do something somewhere else because we don't have the jobs doing a lot of that work here.
yeah, the irony, the woman who won the Nobel Prize in chemistry 2 years ago, Dr. Dudna, from University of California, Berkeley. Dr. Dudna co-won the Nobel Prize in chemistry for inventing CRISPR-Cas9 technology, gene editing technology. This Wahine is a graduate of Hilo High School.
I didn't know that.
She's from Hawaii. The woman who invented modern gene editing technology is a local girl.
Wow.
But that's right, we're not doing that in Hawaii. We're kicking those guys out.
Yeah.
So it's a real problem that the things that are probably at the threshold, or at the forefront of what we should be trying out, involve sometimes controversial scientific applications, and definitely all the time require a highly skilled workforce, generally highly educated, but not uniquely, because there are, as you mentioned in the case of plantation agriculture, those guys weren't mostly farmers. The people that worked in the plantations mostly weren't farmers. And the big myth about when the plantations close, we'll have all this farmland and all the farmers can blah, blah, blah. The people that worked in plantation agriculture operated big rigs. Right? The guys I knew how to paint metal, because they worked at an industrial site called a sugar mill or at a cannery. And the food processing part of it, the manufacturing part of it,
Right.
was as important as the agricultural production part of it, which was done at scale, right, with big rigs. Not going out and mucking around in the taroloi in your bare feet. And so the conceptions that people have of what constitutes economic diversification, 60% of Hawaii's workforce 100 years ago was engaged in agriculture. Today it's 0.6%, right? Agricultural productivity, partly because of genetic modification, agricultural productivity has risen so much, and food in America is so cheap and abundant compared to what it used to cost in real terms, that we're obese and diabetic, right? With less than 1% of the workforce, we feed the world. So Hawaii kind of needs to push forward, and I don't think, here's the core problem from an economic theoretic perspective, and let me pivot to where we might be able to rehabilitate the concept a little bit, and where my colleagues at the University of Hawaii are doing so. A small open economy maximizes social welfare by specializing in its comparative advantage, the things it can do relatively well versus other economies with which it's trade. And in Maui's case, the low-hanging fruit is tourism. People just wake up every morning in Maui, and it looks like Maui, and millions of people get on airplanes to fly to Maui to experience the same thing that Maui residents wake up every morning and enjoy. Now, does the destination have to be managed? Do the spillovers from that economic activity have to be managed? Of course they do. That's the failure of Hawaii tourism policy, the failure of destination management, failure of tourism economic governance, all the things people are talking about now that we left on the side. But I hate to say it, we should have been doing that all along. And, I'm going to go up to Rocky Mountain National Park tomorrow. I have my senior pass now, my lifetime whatever achievement award for not dying.
How much does that save you, by the way? I'm just curious.
Oh, who the hell knows? I know I paid $80 for it or something. And it doesn't matter. I would have paid. That's my point, right?
That's right.
You got to pay.
You'd pay whatever. Yeah, that's right.
And it doesn't matter whether you're a resident or not. All this thing about locals. We're going to make like green tax for charge the holiday guys from the mainland. I'm like, what? Big and much, dude? But then I also have to make my timed entry reservation online, right? I go on my little smartphone app.
Mm-hmm.
I go to recreation.gov, and I book my entry like I'm going to an exhibit of Monet paintings somewhere at an art gallery, and I get my little QR code, and I'll go scan it at the park ranger's shack when I go into the park tomorrow. So we ought to be running tourism the same way in Hawaii. In fact, we ought to be running recreational public recreational resource management the same way.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
And maybe someday DLNR or the tourism authority will figure out that everybody has smartphones, and that's how you should, right? That you should make a reservation and pay a humongous fee to go drive the road to Hana instead of getting on a shuttle bus that will take you the same way and not clog up the road by as much. But anyway, those are things we should have been dealing with. The core issue here is that you don't make the economy better off by suppressing the already successful principal export of the Maui economy.
Right.
You make Maui better, or you make the people better off by doing a better job at managing the spillovers, the congestion externalities, the natural resource and environmental degradation, the cultural pollution that come from, not making people pay their own way or whatever. Right? Every user should pay a fee.
Mm-hmm.
And sure, we give discounts to old dudes like me, and we give discounts to kids, and come on.
That's right.
Use public natural recreational resources for nothing, which is a big problem in Hawaii. We think, the beach should be free. What are you talking about? So there's that. Let's go manage the problems. Then that brings us back to the fundamental question about diversification, which is, what actually are we talking about? The original idea behind diversification is you have a portfolio of assets, and if you have assets in your portfolio that are like kind, right? There's similar kinds of assets, their fortunes rise and fall together, then the value of your portfolio is going to rise and fall altogether. Whereas if you diversify into asset classes that have disparate movement, right? The bonds and stocks whose prices tend to move in opposite directions, then they serve to balance one another's movement.
Right.
And it turns out, it's the miracle of financial mathematics, that if you correctly identify the underlying volatilities of these asset prices, you can construct portfolios that actually yield more on a risk-adjusted basis than would be the case than if you just plunged into one or another corner of the financial markets or real estate or whatever. So that's where the analogy came from. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. The problem is small open economies like Maui's don't have a lot of eggs to begin with,
mm-hmm.
right? They don't have enough eggs to fill the basket. Even Oahu basically has two eggs. It exports tourism-related goods and services, and it exports national defense-related goods and
mm-hmm.
services. That's Oahu's entire list, and it's about 25% of the value added or of GDP on Oahu, which is a huge proportion to be concentrated in one or two things. And in Maui's case, the whole list is tourism, and that's like 40% or maybe 50%. I mean, it's up there as a share of the economy. But this is true of all small open economies. every small town in America does one good thing. You see what I mean? You don't diversify Bemidji, Minnesota into 20 different industries. So the reality of what our aspiration is should be thought of something like this. Tourism is the easy money. Let's do that right. Let's engage in active destination management using passive technologies, using algorithms, using artificial intelligence, using smartphones and booking apps and user fees, and not some dude sitting in a shack collecting your parking money.
Right.
I'm not talking about pointless jobs like that. The unemployment rate's already 3.5%. So you don't have any bodies to do stupid stuff, right? You need the algorithms to do the stupid stuff. And the rest of us can go get real jobs. And then the question is, doing what? Well, that's the whole point. Because tourism is the low-hanging fruit. It's the easy money that falls like a gentle rain from heaven above. That gives us the opportunity to do any number of other things. We just want to chance them and try out.
Yeah.
Right? The beauty of tourism is that you make so much money, you can dabble in other things. Now, the challenge to me is the things I think we ought to be dabbling in are on that STEM frontier.
Me too.
Like I've already talked about, astronomy and biotechnology, both of which, if not outright banned, and Maui tried doing that to one of those industries, is definitely not in growth mode. I mean, I'm not kidding. We dismantled telescopes in Hawaii.
Yeah.
We don't build telescopes. We did when I was a kid, but now that I'm retirement age, it doesn't look like, I don't know, I'm just going to fade into the sunset and see what the next generation does. But if they're not going to do STEM, then what's left?
Right.
So now let's complete the pivot. Is there a way to rehabilitate this aspiration, which, we used to label diversity? We do it because of diversification. Every politician says we need to diversify the economy. Ask them why someday, and they don't know. What we're really talking about, and what my colleagues at the University of Hawaii have been talking about, is thinking more in terms of the nexus, of the network of interrelationships between economic activities and how we can take advantage of what we do have in terms of exportable activities like tourism,
right,
and build out and fill with greater network density the relationships among these various economic activities. Now there's a standard industrial classification, right? It's evolved. It's called the North American Industrial Classification now, that segregates economic activities in the kinds of buckets that we would recognize, professional services, management, administration, right, transportation, construction, manufacturing. The idea that some of my colleagues at the University of Hawaii are exploring, and by the way, listeners can go to the University of Hawaii Economic Research Organization website, uhero.edu, and check out some of the research that they're publishing now. A fellow named Stephen Bond Smith, a professor, faculty member who's affiliated with the UHERO research team, is doing a lot of work in this area of sort of building the network density. I'm using the wrong phrases. Go read his papers about these. Think of the economy as a network, and then how do you build more connections between nodes of economic activity, or how do you build them spatially, right, geographically, externally with respect to other geographies.
Right.
Because that's the thing, I think, to me, the most exciting thing that the pandemic's legacy has underscored is our ability to engage worldwide
Right.
in economic activity. As I mentioned, the statistics regarding work from home, which pre-COVID was less than 10% of the workforce and less than 5% doing it full-time, in Hawaii now is somewhere between 20 and 25%. It's actually been rising slightly over the last year, not falling. It was obviously 3 years ago, right, when the pandemic first hit and sort of threw us all for a loop. We all worked at home. So
Exactly.
remote work was huge exactly 3 years ago in May of 2020. But then people began, the economy began to reopen, people began to go back to work, and there are a lot of occupations where you have to be on the job. You have to be on the construction job site, you have to be serving at the restaurant, or maybe not. Maybe you can deliver the food, or maybe, and you have to be in the target, or maybe not. Maybe you can be driving to the parking lot where they throw your purchases into the car, right? So a lot of things changed after the pandemic, but work from home is here to stay, and what it illustrates is the possibility of working from anywhere. So I literally, an hour before this radio broadcast, I had a conversation with a team member. I'm working on a development team. A team. The owners are in Florida. This team member I was spending an hour with on her spreadsheet, amazing spreadsheet, is in Golden, Colorado. I'm up in Boulder, or out in the country in Boulder, Colorado. Except she's from Maui.
Awesome.
Right, she lives on Maui. She lives in Maui, but I live on Oahu, and we're working with guys from Florida. And
right.
the project is on Maui. In fact, the project may be the only thing right now that's actually on Maui. I'll be back on Oahu next week, and she'll be back on Maui next week. But I'm just saying, we can do that now. And in the early post-European arrival era of the Hawaiian monarchy, tall sailing ships, right in the Polynesian discovery era, right, voyaging canoes,
right,
were the ways we were connected with the global economy. And then came tall sailing ships, and then came transoceanic telecommunications,
yeah,
cables, and then came airplanes, and then came fiber, and now we can work from anywhere.
Yeah.
So the idea that we must diversify the economy by actually building new industries on Maui, that's kind of old school, you know what I mean? I mean, you can do that, and hey, go for broke, bro. Try it, chance them. Why not? You got a good idea? Go chance them. Talk to some investors into it. Go down to Bank of Hawaii, get yourself a business, a business line of credit, and go for broke. Except for everybody, except for all the NIMBYs. Nobody's opposing your new industry. But that's right. What I'm trying to say here is, think of what we used to call diversifying the economy. Think of it in terms of building these pathways, both within and among ourselves in Hawaii and outside Hawaii. Because the internet transcends our geographic remoteness and isolation. That's the way I actually wrote the concept in the 1992 Atlas of Hawaii.
Well, the thing is, Paula, I had, my daughter would come home with other friends and they'd hang out at my house. And so a decade ago, even before COVID, one of her friends worked for a company called Buffer, which competes with Hootsuite in terms of scheduling social media things. And she would sit on my lanai or go down to Baldwin Beach with her laptop. And she not only would be communicating back and forth with the team on the mainland, but they had teams all across the globe. So from my lanai in Pukalani or the beach, she'd be communicating worldwide, doing her customer service work with high-level firms. And that's been going on for a very long time. So, I completely agree with what you're saying is COVID showed a majority of us that there's a way to open this all up. And the other thing is, when we went to diversification in tourism, which was a great idea back then, I know many people older than me who said, our parents were farmers. They wanted us to go off and get an education. We came home and we had many opportunities to come back home to work in the visitor industry. But as I said at the beginning of COVID to some of our council members when I was testifying, a lot of our major industries, restaurant, retail, activities, events, all are tied into the tourism industry. So as you point out, we're not risk adverse. We're very connected. And so when tourism went down, we saw a lot of hurt without some other shining stars in our portfolio. Yeah. So looking at those no ways is really important. So I'm going to, what did you call it? You said an atlas? You said you created
Jim and Sonia Juvic, the two geography professors at the Hilo, Jim and Sonia Juvic, I hope they're still around. They called me up 30 years ago and said, we're going to publish a revision to the Atlas of Hawaii. Remember back in the day when you go into Costco and they'd have a whole row, an aisle full of books. Remember those days?
I do, yes.
So
Not
the
anymore.
Atlas of Hawaii would be stacked there in the aisles at Costco in the 1990s. Yeah, they asked me to write a chapter about the Hawaii economy, and the reason I remember it is because they kept saying maps. You got to think maps. It's an atlas, and like, okay, how would I think about? And it was just at that time that as the joke goes, sometime between when Al Gore invented the internet and when he discovered global warming, right, we all realized that the internet was going to be a thing.
Right.
And and I know people are struggling with AI right now, and obviously there are downside risks, but we have to embrace the technology and build the guardrails that will allow us to do good things instead of bad. But at that time, we were kids, at Bank of Hawaii, coding BOH.com in hypertext markup language, and I realized at that moment, wow, this is how we're going to do banking, right? We're going to do it online.
Yeah.
And so that idea of transcending geographic remoteness and isolation through the internet, through fiber, came to mind. But what I realized is that that's what Polynesians and Hawaiians and contemporary Hawaiian culture have always done, they've always transcended geographic remoteness and isolation with the technology of the day, whether it's voyaging canoes or tall sailing ships or trans-Pacific telephone cables or, commercial passenger aviation.
Yeah.
And, now we have fiber, and we're going to build more of it, and the pathways the pipes, or, the bandwidth is bigger and faster. And so you don't have to do that, right? You can operate a plate lunch place, and that's as good as, good as anywhere else. But
for diversification.
Yeah, we can obviously, like I say, why would we not keep on doing tourism, just smarter and with, more care and more attention?
Good point. You know what, Paul, we're gonna have to end there, but I think we got the lead in for our next show with you and I, and we're gonna talk about our new atlas and our pathways for diversification. I think that this is going to be awesome. The
atlas is virtual, and it's going to be in the metaverse, so we'll see you in 3D.
Oh, I like that. I love that. Thank you so much, Paul, for joining us today and from taking time out of your retreat in Colorado to be on with us. It's always a great pleasure, and you always get those juices flowing. I can't wait to have you on again soon.
Good. There's plenty. Hey, if you're young and you're on Maui, or you're going to move to Maui, give them. Try something new. Try something different. Don't let everybody tell you can't do it. Chance them.
That's right. Awesome. Well, Paul, thank you so much. You have a wonderful time in Colorado.
Thanks, Pam.
And we'll have you on again soon. Mokulele Airlines operates the largest commuter airline hub in the country, right here in Kahului. Fly Mokulele from Kahului to Molokai, Lanai, Hana, Waimea, Kona, and now Hilo. Mokulele also operates the only flights between Kapalua and Honolulu. There is never a middle seat on Mokulele, and every seat has a window and aisle. Visit mokuleleairlines.com and take your next flight from the newly renovated Mokulele Terminal. Aloha! We're back with Business Matters, brought to you by the Maui Chamber of Commerce and sponsored by Mokulele Airlines. Our next guest is Shayna Decker. She is the Government and Community Affairs Director for Hawaiian Electric, which of course also covers Maui County, where she is responsible for the company's efforts relating to community and government relations, consumer education and community service activities, and communications for Maui, Molokai, and Lanai. She is a Maui native and has been with Hawaiian Electric for 10 years and also currently volunteers as treasurer on the board of directors for the nonprofit Maui Family YMCA in Kahului, which we all know and love. Shayna, good morning and welcome to the show.
Good morning, Tam. How are you?
I'm great this morning. How are you?
Good. Thank you so much for having us on today.
Oh, it's our pleasure. We're thrilled to have you on. I know there's so many questions about what's happening with our energy goals and what's happening as we watch oil prices. So I know that's one of the things, with the surge in oil pricing that last year, people were starting to see higher electric bills. And I know that you've got a great update and can explain to people what's going on and maybe some of the things that are available to help them.
Sure, yes. Typical residential electric bills are now lower than a year ago when we saw that global surge in oil prices that drove the rates higher. What that means for Maui County is customers should be seeing this reduction in their bills that they received in June, with decreases that can range from about $7 to $30 less on Maui, Molokai, and Lanai. This is actually getting closer to the level that electric bills were before the Russian invasion of Ukraine, when we saw those spiked oil prices and elevated electric rates starting last spring. And the reduction in these electric bills can mostly be attributed to the fuel prices stabilizing and declining in the global oil market in recent months. The interesting thing is that, again, the Public Utility Commission regulates the formula for rates, which includes fuel costs that fluctuate with the world market. So Hawaiian Electric makes no profit on the fuels used to generate electricity on our island. And at the same time, we understand other living expenses and costs in general are higher now. So for those who do need help with their electric bills, we ask that you please contact us. We're really wanting to reach out to you and connect with you. You can actually check out our website, hawaiianelectric.com, has direct numbers to reach us. And we can talk about payment option plans. There are various financial assistance programs available. And coming up in a few days, starting in June, applications are also being accepted through Maui Economic Opportunity for what is called LIHEAP, or Low Income Home Energy Assistance Program that we have available. And that is all available starting in June. And you can check out again, hawaiianelectric.com under payment assistance for more information about those different financial options.
That's really great to hear. And that you shared something that I didn't even know, which is that, I did know that the PUC regulates the formulas and all of that for what the costs are and can be passed on to consumers, but that you make no money on the fuel.
Right. Hawaiian Electric, makes no profit on those fuels. And so when you're looking at your bill, the fuel cost is actually more than half of the bill. And that, is what we're trying to stabilize while we go towards more renewable energy. The fuel is what goes up and down and what creates that volatility.
Yeah, very exciting. And I think that kind of gets into my next question again, as you mentioned, and a great point, of course, that we're trying to stabilize throughout Hawaii, and we have these important energy goals, but we're trying to stabilize costs for our local communities and residents with renewable energies. So what are some of the future plans in Maui County as we're looking to decarbonize our island's energy system and stabilize those rates? Tell us about how we're doing against the goals that the state and county have set, and what are Hawaiian Electric's plans to help with that?
right? It's actually really exciting times here in Maui County. We're actually really leading the way when it comes to adding renewable energy, not only in Hawaii, but in the nation. And so when you're looking at how we're adding renewable energy, we're really doing it to decarbonize the way that we make energy to meet the energy needs of all of our customers on Maui. This includes the residents, our businesses, and our communities. And so part of that is having a plan. And we just finalized a comprehensive plan for Maui County that charts out how we're going to get there and how we're going to get there with the lowest cost path for creating a stronger island grid while also cutting our carbon emissions. And this plan it needs to be approved by the Public Utilities Commission. And once approved, our near-term actions in what we call our integrated grid plan. This includes expanding customer choices with new programs that will make it more affordable for customers to participate in these renewable energy goals and have more access to energy generation, storage, and efficiency. Our plan also plots out how we want to stabilize those rates by adding, again, more large-scale renewable generation and energy storage. And at the same time, we also need to ensure reliability by adding renewable firm generation. So firm generation includes those potential resources like geothermal, renewable hydrogen, which a lot of folks are talking about, biomass or biofuels. Those types of things need to be balanced. So we have the large-scale as available renewable projects like solar and wind, but we also need to look at renewable firm generation for our island grids in the future. And that's why we will continue to monitor all technologies as well as the current condition of our aging generating units and also being able to prepare contingency plans as needed. So I'm very excited about it. It's the most excited part, I think, is the engagement with our communities that's coming through these plans. We are going to do it early and often throughout the development of all of.
Oh, are you there, Shayna? Shayna? We seem to have lost you for just a minute, but I'm sure Shayna will be calling back in. But it's exciting that she's talking about, and we're starting to.
Pam.
Oh, there she's back. Okay, good. We lost you for a quick minute. Okay, so we.
Sorry.
I don't. No worries. No worries. Happens. The tech is good, and we got a lot of bandwidth. We were talking about that earlier this morning. So the good news is we can generally get back on. Thank you so much. I think we lost you right as you were talking about how you're going to monitor all of these new technologies that are coming forward.
Thanks. Yes, it does include monitoring all the different new technology, right? Like the new possibilities for firm renewable generation, as well as the different large-scale renewable energy projects coming up. It also includes monitoring the condition of our current generators and preparing contingency plans as needed. So it's very comprehensive. And the most exciting part, I think, I'm looking forward to is really the continued engagement with all of you, our communities, and we want to do this early and often, throughout this entire future energy for our islands. It's very important, not only to all of us here, but, to our future generations on Maui, Molokai, and Lanai. And so a lot of this does mean going out to the community, talking about future energy projects, talking about where we're going to put future infrastructure that is needed to add more of these renewables to generate energy for our island and for everyone here.
That is so true. And I understand, I've been hearing about, first of all, I know that we've had infrastructure that's been in place for a really long time, but I understand there's some new RFPs that are coming forward that are looking at some of these new technologies for firm power.
We do have a request for proposals for different types of renewable, and that does include the renewable firm generation that we are asking developers to propose projects right here on our island.
Oh, that's so exciting. How quickly is that coming up? Or is this something that we're going to see in the next few months, next year?
In the next few months, we will be having those proposals come in. So we will be announcing as the projects come in, ones that go through a thorough review and evaluation, a lot of different criteria involved in reviewing those proposals. And then in the few months following in early next year, we'll be announcing the projects that made the selection and then go from there.
And one of the things I was excited about is, looking at natural gas and hydrogen and And I always think, again, we keep hearing about this as a really a less expensive, a less expensive fuel source. But what does something like that take in terms of as we're converting to some of these new technologies? I envision we're talking major plant modifications, or is it new plants? Can you modify an existing plant, or are we looking at putting in a lot of new infrastructure?
It's going to be a little bit of all of that, actually. You're looking at really not putting all of our eggs in one basket. It's really diversifying. So you'll see, large scale renewable projects like solar, on Kuhelani Highway, which is coming up quickly. And then you'll also see modification of different equipment that we have just within some of our power plants. So we are looking at modifications. We're looking at large scale renewable energy projects. And then we're also as well looking at that new infrastructure that you mentioned, right? Because with new technology, we'll need different types of electric infrastructure to ensure that we can create that energy and then be able to distribute and transmit that to all of our residents and communities here on the island. So it'll include all of that, a real diversification. And that, I think, really is the future. We're not trying to just do one thing. It really has to be all a multi-pronged approach on how we create this future energy for our island and how we're going to do it cleanly and get to that 100% renewable energy goal by 2045 that our state is very, set, and we're excited to meet that ambitious goal.
Well, and thank you for mentioning that date. And I don't know if you got to listen to Paul Brewbaker earlier, but you are singing what we were talking about right now, which is, again, not all of our eggs in one basket, the diversification. We want to look at a diverse portfolio, sort of like he likened it to the financial markets. Yeah. Yes. So that, again, if one goes down, you've got other backups. Exactly. So we were talking a little bit about tourism, and again, with all the related industries with tourism, that when tourism went down, we saw a great hurt across our economy with other industries that are deeply related to tourism also struggling. So you are speaking exactly what we were talking about earlier. So I want to thank you for that. I also want to say that, Hawaiian Electric Company has had a long history of publishing a book to help people understand emergency preparedness. And we are up against hurricane season. So we're starting in just a few days. Can you talk to people a little bit about some of the things that they can do to prepare for emergencies, and particularly related to hurricane season, just in general as well, but also, how they can best prepare for the season that's upon us?
Yes, with, hurricane season runs from June to November, but we've seen recently we're experiencing more of those past Kona low weather events. So we know these type of incidences can happen at any time. Storms can bring down trees and then bring those trees down on power lines and then can cause damage, right, to company assets and our homes. So for Hawaiian Electric, we really get out there in terms of preparing for emergency situations. And so we ask, even our employees and family and friends, now is the time to get ready and make sure your family is prepared for this storm season. We do have our handy handbook for emergency preparedness. You can find that online at home.
Oh, are you there, Shayna?
Can you find me again?
Okay, we got you. Okay, we lost you right at, you can find it online.
Yes, so our Hawaiian Electric Handbook for Emergency Preparedness is at hawaiianelectric.com. We're also going to be distributing it through the local Ace Hardware throughout the island here on Maui County. And so you can pick that up. And it really includes everything from how much gallons of water you should have for each person and your pet in your household per day. So very detailed, to even the steps. It talks about the steps we need to take to restore power safely after a storm. So it kind of walks you through generator safety and all those different types of things that you want to do to prepare for this storm season and other emergencies. And so it's really a good, helpful resource to make sure you and your loved ones are ready for this storm season and can weather the different types of emergencies that we may have.
It is an excellent resource. So I'm glad to know that it's going to be available at Ace Hardware. I know that as you go to community meetings, you're bringing the books out to different groups as you're speaking with them and sharing those books with participants, which is awesome. You know, the big question that I hear all the time is when the power goes out, how long do I have with my food in the refrigerator and the freezer? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes, so, every time I read our handbook, I learn something new. And so you're really looking it in.
Uh-oh. Shayna, I'm sure she's going to... Oh, there we... Okay. We got a blip.
Sorry about that. My connection here is...
That's okay. You're back. Wait, so you were just saying every time you read your handbook, you're learning new things.
And then you can actually learn about the food safety storage. And so our rule of thumb is when your power first goes out, you really want to keep that refrigerator and freezer door closed. So hopefully you don't have to keep going in there, and you really want to just keep it as long as you can, not opening it out. And then for an extended amount of time, it does talk about that food in a freezer will approximately keep for about 48 hours for a fully stocked freezer and about 24 hours for a half full freezer. So I think that's like the general rule of thumb. And then refrigeration, of course, would be less than that. And then you can also always find that in our handbook for emergency preparedness, and it spells out all the different types of situations for that type of food storage safety.
Yeah, that is so important for people as they're depending on how long things are out. And I know and really want to say to everybody, our community is so grateful, and sometimes people get a little frustrated, but when they hear what your teams are doing, each and every disaster, whether it's from one down tree to multiple locations in crisis and outages across the island and of course our county, you're always there, and your team is always on the front lines doing amazing things. And we just really want to thank you for the tremendous work you're doing. And also, I think we might have lost Shayna. Okay, we did lose Shayna, and we've got a little bit more time. So we'll see if she's back. Is she Shayna, you back? Are you there? Okay. Oh, we're losing her. Okay. Well, I just, I as a community, I know that we're always very grateful for the work that Hawaiian Electric does. And Shayna, I think, are you back?
Thanks, Pam. Yes.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's just so much work, and really thank you so much for all that you and your team do to provide us with reliable power, that is we can count on and keeps everything flowing, and then working as hard as you do, as quickly as you do when we've got times of outages. So, and thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thank you, Pam. Look forward to talking with you again.
We will.
Have a great day.
Thank you. You too. Aloha. Well, it goes quickly here at Business Matters. We just love having everybody on and sharing these messages with the public. So thank you for joining us today. I'm Pamela Tumpop of the Maui Chamber of Commerce, inviting you to join us again next Tuesday and sending blessings and best wishes for a beautiful Maui day.
And before we close, let's remind people that now people can apply for Maui County. Made in Maui County is coming back.
Thank you, Cindy. Yes, Made in Maui County Festival applications are out. So apply now because there's a lot of interest.